fellow candidates, today I'm going to give you your introduction to weapons, which will include some terminology and also some weapons handling. At OCS, you'll be using the M16A4 service rifle. For the demonstrations in this video and circumstances being what they are, I'll be using this airsoft model, which is technically an M4 carbine. Now the M4 and M16 are very similar, enough for me to use this model to illustrate my points. And in fact, I'll just refer to this as an M16 from here on out for brevity's sake. If you're wondering, the difference between a rifle and a carbine is primarily size, so you can think of a carbine as a compact rifle. There are more technical differences, but that is a good enough working definition. So let me illustrate the differences with this graphic here. So rifle, 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 carbine. Okay, let's start with some terminology. The M16A4 is split into three main groups. You've got the upper receiver, which is the top part of this body of the rifle here, and that includes the barrel and all of its components, so upper receiver. Then you've got the lower receiver, which is this part here, and the buttstock. And then you've got the bolt carrier group, which lives inside the upper receiver and it slides back and forth. And if this were a real rifle, I could split it into bottom and top, with there are a couple pins here and here that pop out, and then you can take the rifle apart. Here is what the bolt carrier group looks like. Next, let's look at the specific parts on the M16, starting with the tip here. So this is your compensator. Then you've got your bayonet stud where you fix your bayonet onto. This is your front side assembly, sling swivel, heat guard, and also has the rail system that you attach other components onto. This is your slip ring here. This is your carrying handle. Marines never carry their rifle by the carrying handle. You've got your rear sights back here. Then on this side of the rifle, you've got your ejection port cover. Now on a real rifle, this is a flap that opens and closes. This is your forward assist here. This is your magazine release. This is your magazine well. This is a magazine and this goes in here like that. Trigger guard, the actual trigger. This is called the pistol grip here. This is the charging handle. Then on the other side, we have our bolt catch. This is spring loaded and holds the bolt locked to the rear until you depress it. Then we've got our safety selector lever, and on the M16A4 it comes with three options. That's safe, semi-auto, and burst. And it does have that distinct click on the actual rifle as well. Finally, we've got our buttstock, and at OCS this will be a lot bigger and solid. At TBS, if you're of a smaller stature, they might swap it out with a collapsible one like this. But on the inside of the buttstock, you've actually got a compartment to hold your cleaning gear. And then on the inside of the lower receiver, this is your trigger group. And then, as I mentioned, your bolt carrier group is on the inside of the upper receiver. And finally, in the buttstock on this side, you've got your buffer and buffer spring, which you'll learn about at OCS. So next, let's talk about some of the characteristics of the M16. The acronym that you'll learn is LMGAS, which stands for lightweight, magazine fed, gas operated, air cooled, shoulder fire weapon. And here are some of the other technical specifications of the M16 that you'll want to know. Finally, you'll also want to know your cycle of operations, which is basically how a rifle gets a round to move through the system. The cycle of operations is as follows: firing, unlocking, extracting, ejecting, cocking, feeding, chambering, locking. So on this video with another look at the components and with a look at the actual operation of the rifle. So as I mentioned, here's the upper receiver. These are the heat guards. Here's the lower receiver, and here's that one pin here, and then also this pin comes undone so that you can separate the parts entirely. And then here is the bolt carrier group right here. So this is the charging handle, this is the bolt carrier group with all of the components assembled, and then this is the bolt right here, the actual bolt. Here is the trigger group, here is the chamber, and then here is the buffer and buffer spring, and then your cleaning kit will go in here. I should mention that this is an M16A1, which is the predecessor to the M16A4. Here is the ejection port, and then here's the ejection port cover, which is spring-loaded, and it's open for the bolt to eject shells or rounds, and it's closed to prevent debris getting into the upper receiver and causing the weapon to malfunction. Here is the bolt lock to the rear, and that's done with a mechanism in the magazine. And you'll notice that when the bolt is locked to the rear, the upper portion of the bolt catch has popped out. And so if you were to press on this, that would send the bolt forward. Next, I'll show you how the charging handle works. So the charging handle pulls on the entire bolt carrier group. And then so long as there is another round in the magazine, the buffer spring will push the bolt carrier group forward. The bolt will grab one of those rounds off the magazine, and then it will feed it into the chamber. And finally, we'll review the cycle of operations, and I will leave it to you to determine which step is happening when. So I'll end this video here, but I hope that that was a helpful introduction to weapons and to the weapon that you'll be using at OCS and probably beyond. There are more videos coming on this topic, so stay tuned for those. If you have any questions, let me know. And as always, remember, it is not about you. Take care.